So we're continuing with the Tzemach Tzedek's Chasidus, Sefer Halikutim, Dach Tzemach Tzedek, and we're the letter Aleph, Umot, haOlam. So in this volume, we're on page Tuf Kuf Chaf Beis, which would be in Numbers 5:22, in the middle of the page. Hine Ksiv. Behold, it is written. This is a verse quoted from the book of Deuteronomy. V'haya chishmoya, and it will come to pass when you will hear, or it will be heard. Es divrei ha'ala hazois, the words of this oath. V'hisbarech bilavavoy, and the individual will convince himself in his heart. V'goymer, etc. L'ma'an sfois harava es hatzmeya. In order that the one that is, well, let's see exactly how to translate it into proper English. Give me a moment. As if in a drunken stupor, a further punishment for his sins done intentionally out of a conscious thirsting. Okay, so basically, the person is going to be sinning purposely. So it's an unusual language, even biblically. Sfois harava. Tzmeya means thirsty one. So he brings down now Piresh Rashi. Rashi interprets Sanhedrin in the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, Tafain Vav Beis, 76b. Shulashain Chibur. Rashi brings down, explains in the Talmud, that Sfois comes from the terminology of attachment, of connection. K'moi Sfu Shana al Shana, Yeshaya Chavtes Aleph. Like there is a verse in Isaiah, Yeshaya, chapter 29, first verse, 29:1, which says, attach a year to a year. The Haradak, Piresh, and the Radak, Reb David Kimchi, one of the primary commentators on Tanakh, so he interprets L'shoin Toisefes, that the word here in this verse in Deuteronomy, Sfois, means to add. So Rashi says it means to attach, and the Radak is saying it means to add. V'hinei, Knesses Yisrael, the Jewish souls collectively, Nikreis is called Tzmeya Liyotzra, thirsty for her creator, for the one who forms us. So the Jewish souls are thirsty, we're the Tzmeya, thirsty for Hashem. The Rave, what does it mean? Sfois harave. The Rave, Nikra, is referring to Masher Roitze, that the individual wants, Lemalois ta'avasoi begashmius, to fill his desires physically. Ve'ein loi ratzein le'elikim, and he does not have a will or a desire for Hashem. Ki im, rather, just, ikar cheftzoi v'cheshkoi, his primary want and desire, betanugim gashmiim, is in physical pleasures. Shehem that they are mizumanim, available, haOlam hazeh, in this world, in this physical materialistic world. V'yochol, and the individual is able, l'ravois tzimoinoi, to quench his thirst, his desire, v'cheshkoi, and his want, his longing, bahem, in them. In other words, instead of wanting godliness, the individual wants and is completely desiring and lusting, if you will, for physical pleasures. Valkain, and therefore, nikra raveh. That is why the individual is called raveh, reish vav hey, which means the one that is longing or has a desire for physical delights and pleasure. Aval, however, hanefesh ha'elikis, the godly soul of the Jew, shetzimoina, that its thirst, v'cheshka, and its longing, le'elokim, is to Hashem. And what does it want? Mashe'enoi meir, that which is not shining, it is not illuminating, umiskale, and revealing, begilui, in a revealed way, ata, now, mamish, literally and really. In other words, since Hashem is not revealed, therefore the godly soul feels the lack and the want and the desire for that. Ki'im, rather, all we have, hayidiyah, mitziusoi, the knowledge of Hashem's existence, v'loi mahus, but not his essence. In other words, Hashem's essence is unattainable and not felt. Yes, we know his existence, and we can even intellectually and rationally prove the existence of Hashem. But that's not sufficient, and that's not grasping his very essence. Ad, until, when are we in the situation? La'asid lavoi, in the future to come. Shenemar, as the verse states, v'lei kanef oid meirecha chuli, and your teacher, referring to Hashem, will no longer be covered. Yikanef is the same word as a wing, or as a the side of the garment. The must be a good English word for that. The
hem.
No, not the hem. The whole kanaf. Sort of the corner, but it's not just a small part. So the corner of the garment which covers over the person, so Hashem is covered over, but he is no longer going to be covered over in the times of Moshiach.
Like morning prayer,
yeah.
Like morning prayer when you cover your head with a talus, like that type of, is that what this is referring to?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the talus legally does have the corner where you put the strings on. That's called the kanaf. That's true.
But when you say the morning prayer,
no.
Okay,
no.
okay.
No. So kanaf means corner when you're talking about a garment. Otherwise, by a fowl, by birds, kanaf is the wing. But like the verse says, by tzitzis, that they are to attach the strings, the tzitzis, al kanfei vigdehem, on the corners of their garments. So the kanaf is like the part of the garment that's kind of covering over. So the verse says that Hashem will no longer be covered. Al kain, therefore, nikra ata tzmeya. That's why now the godly soul is referred to as the thirsty one, because we're thirsting for that which we are lacking, and that is the revelation of the essence of Hashem.
And it can't do that until it gets in line with the goof, or the goof gets in line with it, right?
Well, the godly soul, in contrast to the animal soul, which we're going to get to in a moment, the godly soul wants godliness, and it doesn't have it in a revealed way, so therefore it's thirsty for it. In other words, the thirst is not quenched. So we're still thirsty. Once you have something, you no longer feel the need or the desire for it. So since it's all concealed and it doesn't shine in a revealed way, so therefore the godly soul is thirsting for it. Not so with the animal soul. Its longing, its desire is lidvarim gashmiim, is for physical stuff. And therefore it's called nikra rave. In other words, we're using two different words which seem to mean the same thing. So he says, yes, it all depends on who, which soul we're talking about. We have the word tzmeya and we have the word rave. And in the verse that we started off with, Leman Sfois Harave Es Hatzmeya. That was on the second line in the paragraph. So we had Sfois Harave Es Hatzmeya. So Rave, we're saying, is the animal soul's desire and thirst for physical pleasures. Tzmeya is the godly soul's thirst for godliness. So they're both thirsty, they're both longing and desiring something, but they're two opposites. One wants godliness and one wants physical pleasures. So the verse says, Sfois, which we gave two interpretations, either connecting, attaching, or adding the Rave with the Tzemeya. And now he explains. Valderech zeh, and similarly along the same lines, again, the acronym Vav Ayin Dalid Zayin, V Al Derech Zeh. And by this way, Omar Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera said, Leis de Atir, there isn't that which is rich, Machazira, returning it. Lefi, because Shema'achola Psoiles. I'm sorry. Again, Leis de Atir, there isn't richness, Mechazira, from, I believe it means the female pig. Why? Lefisha machola psoilis, because its food is waste, is not good things. Lachain, therefore, hu ashir, therefore he's rich. Shebinoke lahasig mevukoshoy v'tavasoi, because it is easy to receive that which he's longing for and that which he's asking for. It's readily available.
Like the pig example and last.
I'm sorry. Let me just correct myself. Finally, one second. Let me translate again. Go back a line. Amr Zera. Leis ta'atir mechazira. There's nothing more rich than the pig. No one is richer than a pig.
Because he's just getting everything. He gets
whatever he wants.
He gets whatever
Since
he
wants garbage, and that's readily available. So one who desires gold and silver may not be rich. He may fantasize, he may desire a lot, but he doesn't have it.
He might not be quenched.
Right. Whereas the chazira, the pig, who wants psoiles, garbage, well, that's plentiful, and therefore there's nobody as rich as the pig. All right, so again, Lachain, therefore, hu ashir, the pig is rich. Shebinokel lahasig mevukashoy, because it is easy to get what he wants, v'tavasa, in his desires. V'kach yodua, and so it is known, shekimoy kain, shin chaf mem vav chaf, shekimoy kain. See, it's very strange. You have to get used to it in the acronyms because you'd assume that stands for like 5 words or something.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the first word is totally there. The first 4 letters are the entire word. And the last letter is the acronym for the next word. So it's she, ki, moi, kain. That, like so.
Oh.
So it is known that so too, kol tanuge olam hazeh, all of the delicacies, all of the pleasures of this world, im psoilus, they are in fact garbage, waste. Everything of the physical pleasures of this physical world are really, in the true scheme of things, considered garbage. Ukanoida, and as it's known, me'inyan, from the concept, from the theme, vaneshev bagoi, that we were settled in the place called Gai, mul Beis Peor, opposite of Beis Peor. So it alluding to the fact that Peor actually means excrement. So wherever we are in this physical world, we're actually sitting opposite, yeah. Ve'al kain, and therefore nikra rave. And for this reason, this thirst and this longing is called a rave. Ve'al derech ze ne'emar, and along the same lines it says, b'mishlei, siman daled pasuk ches, in the book of Mishlei. What's that in English?
Mishlei, Proverbs?
Yeah, right. Thank you. So in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 8, L'cha, let's go, nir ve doidi chuli. Again, the word nir ve, which is the idea of rave, doidi, my beloved. V'zeu perush, and this is the meaning of what the verse says. V'haya, this is how we started off the section. This going back to the first line. V'haya bishmoya, when he hears as divrei ha'ala hazais chuli, when he hears the words of this oath, shalom yihi ali, he's going to say to himself in his heart, I'll be fine. I will have peace. No worries. That's what the individual is going to say. Afal pichein, nonetheless, afal pi, even though, shebi shrirus libi elech, that with the stubbornness of my heart I'm going to go, meaning I'm going to do whatever my heart desires. This is all referring to the verse over there in Deuteronomy chapter 29. Leman, and then it comes these words. What does it say there? In order, Sfois harava. The Hainu meaning, Shemamshich, that he draws down, Chayus, life, Mitzmeya, from the one that's thirsty, La Rava, to the one that's thirsty for the physical things. In other words, Tzmeya, we said, is the thirst of the godly soul. Rava, we said, is the thirst of the animal soul for physicality. Besoid, and this is according to the mystical meaning, Ragleha Yordois Maves, that her feet of this referring to the Malchus, go all the way down to death, meaning down to this physical world. Uve'emes efsha, but in truth, it's possible, Shi'ele Shavim, that the individual will have peace. Because the person is saying in his heart that I will have peace. That's what the person thinks. In other words, the attitude of the person is, I can truly have peace. So what if I desire physicality and I desire my desires? I could still have peace, and that's a mistake.
They follow the death. They follow it all the way to death.
That's right. Gives a new twist or a new meaning to the term "I love you to death."
Oh my, yeah.
Aval ze'enoi, but this is not so. It doesn't work like that. You can't have peace and go after your Raveh. Ki'im, only be'oivdei koichavim, only by the idolaters. Uchmoi, and like Mitzrayim, the Edom, the nations of Mitzrayim and Edom, shehem mikablim shif o yisparech, that they receive the flow of energy from Hashem, me achoyrayim, from the backside. Kiman, top of the next page, deshade, like a person who throws basar kasfei, over their shoulder. Like we've mentioned this parable, that like when the individual, or in the parable, the king is not interested in giving, but he's going to give because that's the system that he made, or he obligated himself, or whatever you want to say in the parable. So to Hashem is giving to the idolaters, to the nations that are worshiping other gods like Mitzrayim and Edom, etc. But it's indirect. But because they're getting in an indirect way, they therefore can have their cake and eat it. They can have their physical desires, the most delicious cake, and they still get this godly flow, because it doesn't go with what you deserve and what you're doing. It's just being thrown to you over the shoulder. Aval Yisrael, Aval al Yisrael, Ne'emar. But in contrast, with regards to Yisrael, to the Jewish people, it is stated right over there in the same verses, Lo yoive Hashem, Hashem will not want Sloyach loy, to forgive him. The Hainu meaning, Hamshachas harotzoin, the drawing down of the will, meaning of the will of Hashem. Ki hakas, for the anger, hu istalkus harotzin mimenu, is the removal of the will from him. The ayin, and now the Tzemach Tzedek is sending us a reference to look up somewhere. In the discourse of Avodim Hayinu, which I believe is in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe Siddur. So there's, on the Haggadah Shel Pesach, there is a mimer with the opening verse of Avodim Hayinu, that we were slaves to Paroi.
And yeah, this is from Pesach.
Yeah.
This is, I recognize this from that when you went over Shar Hag Hamatzos.
Yeah. So what does it say over there? The Davka Oivdei Koichavim Umazalois. It is specifically those that worship the stars and constellations, etc., Shemikablim, that they can receive. Mibechinas Acherayim, since they're receiving from the back end. Lachain, therefore, Yuchlu, they will be able, Lekabel, to receive, Mibechinas Rave Hanal, from this Rave, from this thirst for physicality, as mentioned above. Valderech, and similar to Kama Erech HaPaim Chuli, that we had a while back. We spoke for a little bit about Erech HaPaim, the long face, or the infinite patience. So he's saying, same idea. B'dibra maschil b'shalach paroi, in the mimer with the opening verse of b'shalach paroi, when Paroi sent. So that's good for the idolaters. They get what they want because they're not getting in a way of what they deserve and what they earn. So if it's not according to what they deserve and what they earn, they get an abundance. Aval neshamas Yisrael nun shin yud, but the Jewish souls, mikablim mibechinas hapnimius, they're receiving from the innermost way, not only not over the shoulder from the backside, but in a very direct way. Now remember, the word panim, face, is the same exact word as pnimius, which means internal. Umi bechina zoi, and from this aspect, nimshach alpi cheshboin, is drawn down the godly life and energy, etc., according to the calculation. It's very specific. Mei chachma ilah, from the supernal level of chachma, of Hashem's wisdom. And there it has to be according to calculation. There you have to have a very accurate accounting. So the accountant does a lot of work over there. So in heaven, the heavenly accountant really works, and there's no such thing as, oh, just give it to him. Excuse me?
And you taught through Rabbi Steif's work that B'nai Noach don't have measures, right? There's no.
That's very good. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Very good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Wow. I didn't think it was like that.
I was thinking about that last week when you said it, because he hinted to this, I think, in a paragraph before, but he didn't go into detail. Now he's going into detail. It's without measure. Yeah.
B'nai Noach have no. Wow. That's a wow. That's a good chiddush.
Yeah. You're connecting the sod with the pashat, basically. It's very cool.
Wow. Well, you actually did that, not me.
Well, that's how I think.
Wow. I don't always agree with you, but this one's good.
Yeah. Well, you let me know if you think more about it and you come up with something. I'd like to know more.
Okay. Vizehu, and this is my taima. What's the reason? Ize maskin chuli. I'm not sure what this is referring to, but it's something about, I think, why are the goats many? Shehemi bechinas bereisha chashecha, because they're coming from the aspect of at the beginning it's dark. Mashein kain, which is not the case, oimer, or as he points out at the bottom, it should probably be imre, which is the sheep. I mean, it says in the manuscript it says oimer, but in another manuscript it says imre. V'Hashem hemir chayoim. Then we have the verse, also in Deuteronomy, that Hashem selected you, chose you, praised you today. Vayin mashakosov mizeh, and then he gives a few more references. Take a look what it says about this. Al pasuk chinam nimkartem b'Yeshaya simenun Beis. In Yeshaya chapter 52, it says you were sold for nothing, for free. V'zeh shakosov b'Cheskel simen chaf. And what it says in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20, what does it say there? And that which comes up onto your spirit, meaning whatever you want, should not happen, heaven forbid, if not with a strong hand. So I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to in the end in the references, but basically the idea is that the Jewish people do not receive free. There's no freebies. But for the oivdei kechavim mazolos, for the idolaters, it's all free.
Yeah, that's because it's all, well, not all, right? Just the backside stuff.
Well, right. They're getting from the backside, and therefore it's not according to what they deserve or what they earn or according to any calculations. They can get their desires.
And they're
which is sort of talking about.
They're blocked from the panimiyut, the panimiyut, right?
Right.
Then is that they can't? I mean, if they did maybe teshuva or whatever, but they just can't see it, and two, therefore they're not going to desire. Maybe if they do, they're still going to be blocked. I don't like Haman, basically. Like, yeah, this is.
But I think he's also referring to, based on what he said towards the beginning about the animal soul, that it's not just the idolators or the nations of the world that are not Jewish. Within the Jew himself, he's got his animal soul, which is, so to say, like the,
akum.
Yeah, within himself.
Because that makes sense. This is all fascinating. This is all so fascinating.
Okay. I think we're going to stop at this point. Okay. Because the next one is a little bit long and.
Yeah, that's fine. I got to eat, and my kids just got home. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi Turen. That was amazing. And thank you to the Tzemach Tzedek and Just Baruch Hashem, just amazing stuff.
Okay, and I marked it off this time.
Oh yeah, I need to do this. There we go. I'm going to keep
Okay.
going back to these classes over the years. So this is amazing. Thank you so much, Rabbi Turen.
Sure.
Be well.